Hello, everyone. This is Lester Tellez slash onpointpolitics here. I am hosting a brand new show on the channel called Point Blank, which is going to be a commentary show on political news, non-political news, almost anything that you could possibly think of. So make sure to go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to hit the bell notification so you don't miss another episode of Point Blank. So going ahead and looking at the president's schedule today, he is currently, preparing for an announcement at 4:30 p.m. in the Oval Office White House press pool. He also had a in-town pool call time at about 9 a.m. today. So his schedule was very brief, very short. Only one major event today. And if we actually go ahead and look at Eric Daugherty's page on X, we'll actually be able to see what the announcement was. And the announcement was the following: breaking, President Trump will announce a whopping $100 billion Apple investment into the United States for manufacturing. This is an increase, and that is an increase in Apple's total investment plans to $600 billion. So, this is obviously big news for the current administration. President Trump is seeking investments from big tech companies like this. A lot of the Silicon Valley people ended up coming into the Republican fold during the 2024 presidential election when people like JD Vance, kind of stepped into the fold. A lot of these people were a little bit more enthusiastic to help the president. And a lot of them were not exactly fans of the president before, but them seeing the potential of the administration, the America First stance that the president likes to take in almost every single decision that he makes, this is a really big step forward because we could potentially have this investment create plants in the United States to be able to make iPhones in the United States, make everything in America, which is something that the president is striving for. And so this could be a big announcement. Of course, I'm kind of starting this show at about 1:30. And I believe that his announcement's at 4:30. So, probably in tomorrow's show, we'll be able to get an update per se. We'll be able to kind of do like an update on what he talked about in the announcement. So that's the president's schedule for today. The Sydney Sweeney ad aired just a couple days ago, right? And this was something really interesting because the ad is very simple. It's nothing crazy. I mean, it's just, some beautiful girl, doing an ad for jeans for a jean company. I mean, that's really all it was. I can't really, I don't really understand the whole outrage to it. In my opinion, I understand why people are upset about it, which we're going to discuss now. But I just think it's really interesting that certain people got really upset about this because the Democrats tried kind of playing into it. And it really just shows that the party hasn't really learned anything from 2024. I mean, you have some people like Zoran Mandami coming up, a couple of, high profile individuals that are kind of shifting the party in a more leftward direction, which I actually believe, contrary to popular belief, would actually be better for them, to be honest with you, because you kind of separate yourself from the mold. But we're going to go ahead and watch the ad really quick. I actually haven't really watched the full ad myself, so this will kind of be my first time watching this fully.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has her jeans.
I'm not here to tell you to buy American Eagle jeans. And I definitely won't say that they're the most comfortable jeans I've ever worn. Or that they make your butt look amazing. Why would I need to do that? But if you said that you want to buy the jeans, I'm not going to stop you. But just so we're clear, this is not me telling you to buy American Eagle jeans.
Sydney Sweeney has her jeans.
Okay, yeah.
See what I did there?
You guys,
right?
it's like it's like, guys, it's a play. Like, okay, hold on.
Hi, I'm Sydney Sweeney, and I'm from Spokane, Washington. I can work as a local hire as well, though, and I'm available for the American Eagle jeans campaign shoot.
Profile and hands, please. Thanks. We'll be in touch.
Sydney Sweeney has very keen.
Next. Okay, look, guys, it's an all-American girl doing an ad, right? Like, for jeans, they're trying to get, people of younger age like myself to buy jeans from American Eagle. Like, it's a tacky, sort of American, ad. Like, that's what it is. I mean, it's just, there's no really other way to look at it, right? And the problem that liberals are having is that this ad is racist because the fact that she is using the great genes thing, which obviously is talking about her eye color, like how she said in the ad. I mean, because her eye color matches the jeans that she's wearing. But liberals and certain people have reacted to this as in like a racist way, like as if the ad was trying to put down people that are not of white color. And they kind of ran with this. And it's like, guys, like you guys don't understand. Like, that's not what it was about. And if we look at this, right, people were getting so mad about the ad that all of a sudden you had people going on voter registration websites. And obviously we've blocked out her information, so that, I'm not leaking her, public address. But that is her voter registration. I even looked this up on the voter registration lookup to make sure that this was accurate. And she has been registered since last June, which is kind of interesting. And she is a part of the Republican Party of Florida. So she is actually a registered Republican. This actually surprised me. I actually would have thought that she wasn't. And she's an active voter. So she probably voted in the 2024 presidential election. And so people dug this up and were like, oh, you see, she did this ad and, now she's doing this, she's a Republican. So that made people even more upset. And so then what happened is you had American Eagle double down on the ad. And so now they're doing more ads with her. And if we look at this, I mean, looking at Jaguar versus, this is kind of like an example, okay? Just to look at the difference between these two. And, Patrick David, who's an acquaintance of mine, brief acquaintance. I've met him, once or twice. And I've worked with, the co-host of the Patrick David podcast, as you all know, in the 2024 presidential election. We see here numbers never lie. Here are two different campaign results. So American Eagle's Sydney Sweeney ad made American Eagle $300 million in one day and was $65 million in free media exposure. And the Jaguar LGBTQ ad, which was filmed in a really weird way, they made a new logo, and it was like a LGBTQ type of ad. But the sales in Europe plunged 97.5% when the ad aired. And they've only sold $180,000 in 2018 to only 27K just last year. So that's a huge drop. Okay, that's like huge, right? And this is just kind of showing when you just make a regular ad, they, average, a beautiful girl in the ad, like you're going to see that you're just going to see it just does better. And when you try to do it in a kind of woke way or do the ad in a certain way, it's not going to land with your average, consumer. It's not. And so this is what Patrick pointed out. And if we go here to this video, which this is really interesting, right? Like, I don't understand this. I mean, just look at this. This is like, when you look at this ad, right? Or not the ad, but this video. This is an African-American woman, in front of an American Eagle. And this is what she says. So I'll play it now.
Hey, you want to go to American Eagle?
Oh, I can't go in there because I'm black.
Like,
hey, you want to go to American Eagle?
What? What do you mean? What do you mean you can't go in there because you're black? Like you're and as you see, this is the problem, guys. There's a narrative being built by the left about this ad, which was just a normal ad, and they're trying to turn it into this huge thing. And this shows that, Democrats and liberal types just didn't learn anything from the 2024 election. I mean, they just didn't. This is something that, it's just not a good look for them to be thinking like this. I don't know why this person made this video. Segregation is not a thing. Like, the ad was clear. It was not meant to be racist, but yet they chose to took it as such, and even are going as far as, oh, I can't go in the store because I'm black. Like, this is the this is the thing. It's like she almost wants it. Like, she almost wants the how can I say this? It's like she wants segregation, almost, like not in a literal sense, but like she in her own mind is segregating herself by kind of falling for the narrative that the left was trying to push about the ad. And it's just, why would you even film that? Like, it's just an embarrassing look, like, and so I just think it's kind of hilarious, this whole debacle really turned into. And when you look, the stock actually went up for American Eagle. If we actually go ahead and look at the stock for American Eagle, you'll actually see here that American Eagle stock is up 20%. Now, this was a couple days ago, and it did actually go up to about $13. And I believe if we actually look up the American Eagle stock, right now it is currently sitting at like about right now $12.56. So it dropped, like, it was at $13.28 not that long ago. And now it's at about, $12.56. So, and even since like July 21st, it's gone up quite significantly. I mean, it was at basically at $10 on July 21st, and August 6th, it's at $12.56. So, it's just like, guys, come on, man. Like, clearly the economy, the stock of American Eagle improved from this ad. I believe they sold out their inventory. As a matter of fact, I actually think they sold out their inventory. And then the funniest part, this is the funniest thing to me, right, is when they asked President Trump about what he thought, right, of her being a registered Republican. This is what he had to say about it.
That who was? She's a registered Republican? Oh, now I love her ad. Is that right? Is Sydney Sweeney? You'd be surprised at how many people are Republicans. That's what I wouldn't have known, but I'm glad you told me that. If Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, I think her ad is fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
All right, baby.
Guys, he's funny, man. He is honestly, like, I just think it's like so funny, right? Because Trump is very transactional. That's like how he is, and it's actually, if you kind of look at the history of politics, he's actually more forgiving than like most American politicians. I mean, he's worked with like hundreds of people who didn't like him at all in 2016 and 2020, including Marco Rubio and JD Vance, who are the current front runners to be president and vice president for the Republican nomination in 2028. So it's just like, it's like he's very transactional in that way, where like if you're benefiting his goals, if you're kind of like purporting stuff that he likes, if you're supporting his movement, he'll like give you all the praise in the world. I just think it's something really funny about him, but it is one of the reasons why he actually has been an effective president compared to most modern presidents, and why he was able to win twice non-consecutively. So moving on, right, we're going into the redistricting wars. And this is something that, has been developing for the past like 2 weeks. We've had these, uproars from Democrats about, Republicans are not redistricting in Texas. And they're acting like this is the first time anybody has tried redistricting in this way. And if we pull up the map, I mean, you'll obviously see that this is a gerrymandered map. I mean, it is like it nets the Republicans 5 seats in the House, and that would greatly help their chances of holding the House. And the reason why they're doing this is because Democrats have gerrymandered states like beyond belief, like Massachusetts, Maryland, California, even like Illinois to an extent. California only has 9 seats. that are Republican. But if you look at the vote totals in presidential elections, the Republican gets 35 to 40% of the vote in the state. And so it's like, how in the world are you going to just go out there and draw a map where like Republicans only hold 15% of the seats in California, but somehow the presidential candidate gets 40%. And then, like, obviously, Gavin Newsom tried making this a really big deal and saying, well, Republicans actually have states where they don't have any Democrat seats. And he talked about Oklahoma and Wyoming and West Virginia. And it's like, Gavin, you those seats, West Virginia and Wyoming, the Republican candidate for president the past like 4 or 5 times has won all the districts. Like, there is no way to draw a blue district in West Virginia or Wyoming. Like, it's almost impossible, if not basically impossible, to even draw a blue district. But in California, there are places where you could easily have a red district, but the Democrats drew it a certain way, and it was an independent commission who drew it, which was really just Gavin's approved commission who did it. And so they have gerrymandered their states like crazy, and now the Republicans are finally pushing back. They're trying to act like this is the first time anybody's done this. And so like Missouri, Indiana, South Carolina, a bunch of states are joining in the effort with Texas to kind of even out the playing field. Of course, if we could ungerrymander all the states, that'd be great. But in order to kind of have an even playing field, there are more states that Democrats have gerrymanderedly favor in their direction as opposed to Republicans having it in their favor. And even Florida is trying to join this. And the thing about the blue states is that, like California, they need to hold a special election in order to approve a drawing or like approve a commission. And that might not happen until 2026. So California is not going to get redistricted until then. New York, Maryland, they're already so gerrymandered that there's no way for them to add seats. And Gavin's been trolling on X saying, oh, well, we're actually going to try to draw all the Republicans from California. And I mean, if he did that, I mean, that honestly, if he was able to draw out all the Republicans out of like a map, I would guarantee you that the Republicans would turn out at crazy rates. Like, you would have like almost near presidential level turnout with Republicans because people would just be pissed that he drew like a basically like extremely gerrymandered map, right? And if we look at this, this clip of JB Pritzker, right? And he talks about he redistricted. He said in 2025, redistricting is evil, right? But then he redistricted Illinois in 2022 to look super ridiculous, which we'll show in a later clip.
So Trump came up with a new scheme, rig the system by ramming through a corrupt mid-decade redistricting plan that would steal 5 congressional seats,
I mean,
silencing
he literally
millions
redistricted
of
in
voices,
2022.
especially Black and Latino voters. Let's be clear, this is not just rigging the system in Texas. It's about rigging the system against the rights of all Americans for years to come. Now, Texas Republicans submitted to the president's orders and took steps to advance Trump's Texas takeover. And while Texas Democrats have been trying to work across the aisle to deliver disaster relief after the devastating floods in central Texas, Republicans chose to use the tragedy as political cover to cheat. That brings us to today. Texas Democrats were left no choice but to leave their home state, block a vote from taking place.
Well, they actually did have a choice to leave, and now those people actually have arrest warrants for it. They have arrest warrants out, by the way. They weren't supposed to do that. It's like the way they did it. It's like illegal to break quorum that way. And they fled Texas so that, we're going to be in Illinois jurisdiction, so Texas can't arrest us. So, I mean, that's basically what their plan was. And then this guy decided to like fund all of the Texas Democrats to be able to flee Texas and to be able to provide housing for them and all that stuff. So who's really the one that's actually cheating? Like, it's just so ridiculous how they try to make it out to seem this way when in reality, they're the ones that are cheating the system right now by skipping votes. It's just like so embarrassing, right? And if we look at a second, clip of this, right? If we look here, another thing that I'll go ahead and pull up for you guys. What is this? Like, okay, this is the Texas map, but if you look at Illinois, look at this. Illinois, J.B. Pritzker's interfering in Texas redistricting out of fiend concern to prevent gerrymandering. Pritzker is hosting Texas Dems who fled the state to prevent a vote. They are in danger of arrest. On the left is Illinois. Look at Illinois' districts. That is like ridiculously gerrymandered. Those two districts, like the one on the west side and the one like in the middle of the state, those should not be drawn that way. They drew them that way so that they could be blue districts and avoid Republicans from being elected. Like Illinois is a super gerrymandered state. And they're trying to make it seem like Texas is doing the worst thing in the world. They're just trying to even out the playing field right now, And again, another thing, and this was very revealing. This is shocking. I didn't see this until today, but there's a clip on Stephen Colbert where you actually have J.B. Pritzker on the show, and Stephen Colbert actually calls out J.B. Pritzker and the redistricting of the Illinois, and even J.B. Pritzker admits himself that the state's gerrymander is like,
I need 5 seats.
Well, the problem with that is that they literally redistricted in 2022 Illinois redistricting. They literally, like, what is this guy? Like, this is the problem. Look at this. I just went on Google and it literally says in 2022, Illinois finalized new maps for its congressional and state legislative districts following the 2020 census. And it's like, I mean, they're trying to make it seem like, oh, yeah, we drew our maps super unfair. And so the Republicans can't redraw their maps after we do our super unfair. I mean, they're just playing the game that you guys play. And it's not illegal for them to do mid-decade redistricting. It's really not illegal to do that. They just need to put it up for a vote. What is illegal and what is cheating is the Democrats fleeing the House. Fleeing the House. That's the problem in this entire mess, in my personal opinion. I think that's really the problem. And then you have this lady, right, which is ridiculous, State Rep Jolanda Jones. And she goes on to say that this is like the Holocaust. like redistricting that's going on in Texas is like the Holocaust.
And then integration happened and everybody thought they accept us. They don't accept us. They are showing us who they are. We should believe them. And we better have the courage to stand up. Otherwise, we will fall for anything. And in this country, we will be defeated, deported. I mean, we will lose all of our rights.
If you're an American citizen, then yeah, you shouldn't be deported. So what do you mean? What do you mean?
It happen, it can. And I will liken this to the Holocaust. People are like, well, how did the Holocaust happen? How was somebody in a position to kill all them people? Well, good people remain silent. Or good people didn't realize that what happens to them can very soon happen to me or somebody I love. And so even if you made it, man, you have an obligation to help people who can't, because God forbid they end up targeting you.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous, man. This is so ridiculous. Like, how is redistricting like I don't understand. How is redistricting like the Holocaust? Like, what is this? This is just ridiculous. People are pandering. And to even go forward, another clip from Al Green, which is the state rep that got kicked out of the State of the Union when he was interrupting President Trump. This guy had more things to say about the redistricting.
Happening in Texas is invidious discrimination. It is racial. My dear friends, it is racist. It is. And we have to say it. We have to say it. That's what it is. I know it when I see it. I know it when I smell it. I know it when I hear it. We have a duty, a responsibility, and an obligation to stand up to it. All of us. I'm telling you, it's not just Texas. If it were just Texas, Emmanuel Cleaver wouldn't have his seat on the chopping block in Missouri. It's more than Texas. It's this country. And we, the Democrats, are going to make the difference, because when democracy was on the line, let it be said that Democrats took the stand to preserve and save democracy in the United States of America. God bless you.
Well, no, you didn't, because you elected a nominee for president that didn't even win the primary. She got 0 votes for the primary. You guys basically gave her the nomination after the party cooed the incumbent president of the United States out of his seat. Oh, yeah, he resigned on his own. No, Obama, all these people most likely ended up threatening him to drop out because they knew he was going to lose the election. And then Kamala Harris was just handed the nomination to her by the party because she just happened to be the BP. And if she hadn't held it, they would have lost all the funding for the ticket, and the Democrats would have had to have started fundraising all over again. And so that's the problem. The problem is, no, you guys did the exact opposite of that, actually. You guys didn't even hold the primary. You guys basically didn't hold the primary for the candidate who got the nomination. She wasn't even the legitimate nominee for the party. Like, to be honest with you guys, I don't even think Donald Trump should have debated her, because he could have just said, I debated the legitimate nominee of the Democrat Party, and I'm not going to let the party put me up against the illegitimate candidate that got 0 votes in the primary. That's like what he should have done. But unfortunately, the politics doesn't work that way. Obviously, the campaign thought it was the best decision for him to debate Harris at the time. But I thought it would have been effective if he just straight up said she's not the legitimate nominee. She didn't get any votes. Biden got 14 million votes in the primary. She got 0 votes in the primary. And then what they try to say, the Democrats, actually, she won the election with Joe Biden on the ticket. But I guarantee you, if Donald Trump had stepped aside in 2024 and they gave it to anybody else, the Democrats would be saying the same thing that we said about Kamala Harris. So that point basically goes out the window. When you elect president, yes, technically you elect the president and the vice president, but the top of the ticket is the president. That's the person who you vote for in the primary. You don't vote in the primary for Joe Biden / Kamala Harris. You vote for Joe Biden. So she did not win the nomination. However, which way you want to put it, she did not win the nomination. It was handed it to her. So you guys actually did not preserve democracy. You guys actually did the exact opposite of that. Whew. And then again, of course, and then if you look at Illinois, I mean, it's just the map is so ridiculous in Illinois, right? And then I was going to show another clip, but I mean, look at this. Hold on. Well, this is another clip that just throws me for a loop, right? This is another one.
I certainly can see that argument, and there are other states that you could show, frankly, that are controlled by Democrats and Republicans
This is the liberal commentator on Fox, by the way. Like, this is their Scott Jennings, if that makes sense, guys. This is like their Scott Jennings, okay? Just FYI.
Similar comically drawn lines. But Gavin Newsom and J.B. Pritzker are absolutely correct. Democrats are sick and tired of showing up to fights with the wrong weaponry. We've been pushed around by Mitch McConnell and the Republicans for far too long. And of course, we're going to take the opportunity when we see it to redistrict in a way that is favorable to us. We would be stupid not to. But it doesn't change the facts on the ground. There was a bill in 2021 that all the Democrats supported that would have had a national ban on redistricting in this way, and all the Republicans opposed it. I also heard no complaints from any Republican when Mike Johnson, just a couple weeks ago, decided to abdicate his job to say, actually, Congress isn't in session anymore because I don't want to have to vote on turning over the Epstein files, the bill put forward by Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie. He said, let's go home, rather than talk about the fact that Donald Trump may or may not have been in there.
All right.
So be equal opportunity in your complaints about fleeing your job. At least they're doing this for a good reason.
Tommy, I'll let you take that. Go ahead.
First of all, the Democrat Party has been reduced.
Oh, well, that would have been a good rant to see there at the end. And then you have this, right? This is another thing. Like Maryland. Oh no, this is Massachusetts. Look how stupid this is, right? You have some lady saying, oh, we got to push back harder in Massachusetts, right?
Many Democratic majority states are now threatening to rewrite their own maps if Texas follows through with its plan.
Donald Trump, Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton have left us no choice. That's the reality. Nobody came looking for this.
Oh, no choice. Well, then why don't you explain this? There are no Republican districts. How are you going to draw this to be even more Democrat? Like, it's just, I don't understand it. You guys have all the seats in Massachusetts. You guys have all the seats. You cannot draw the map to be any more Democrat than what it is right now. So how are you complaining about this? I mean, I just think it's hilarious because the Texas GOP is finally pushing back and they're netting the Republican seats that they should have. And it's just, for whatever reason, of course, they try to go on these tangents. And it's just, I just think the redistricting thing is hilarious. I mean, probably some Democrats will return to the House and they'll break quorum and they'll vote on the new map, which adds 5 seats for Republicans, by the way, just FYI. So the redistricting thing is going to be a big, long battle over the next couple of months that we'll be covering on Point Blank. So that'll be something that we go over the next couple of months. Now, just to talk about the 2028 presidential election, I know that this is a commentary show where I'm supposed to kind of deviate from just talking about electoral politics, but Trump actually did make a groundbreaking statement the other day about JD Vance, and we'll get to that in just a second. But I do want to have, in Point Blank, I'm going to have a section of the show where we just cover the 2028 presidential election in every episode. And it's like a brief segment. It's just looking at the betting odds and looking at my current on-point map, which is something that I'm going to start posting on X every day, like my current toss-up map for 2028. It's just kind of something to be there. As the midterms come up, we'll be on this show. We'll talk about my midterm maps, every single day. And just to kind of start off at the betting markets for president, we have, obviously the field's really divided. Right now, JD Vance is winning about over a quarter of basically betting odds here at 28%. Gavin Newsom at 13%. You also have AOC at 9%, Pete Buttigieg at 7%, Marcos at 6%, Andy Beshear's at 5%, and Kamal's at 3%, and Donald Trump is 3%, which is crazy that somebody pointed this out. This is actually kind of hilarious. Donald Trump Jr. actually pointed this out. Kamala Harris has just about as good of a chance as to become the next president of the United States as Donald Trump can at overturning the 22nd Amendment to run for a 3rd term and then win the presidency again. That's how low Harris's chances are in the betting odds of becoming president, which is ridiculously low. And now, again, with Harris, of course, we have had the news of her not running for governor, which is something that's a really interesting move. It's currently reported that she still has president on the table as something that she can run for in the future for 2028, which would be interesting because I actually have a hot take about that. A lot of people have said, oh, she can't find the donor, she can't find this, but I believe that if she were to announce early and say, I'm running for president, Donald Trump's administration's a failed administration, I was right about this, and that, I actually think a lot of people who would have ran for president in 2028 would actually step aside and basically have all their donor resources go to Harris. I actually think a significant amount of figures would do that, including Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, Gretchen Whitmer. A lot of people who I believe would run for president if it weren't for Harris would actually kind of clear the field for her. And she wouldn't have like a super clear field. She'd probably win like 50 to 60% of the primary vote. But in terms of a candidate who just lost the last general election and was only the VP, that'd be a pretty impressive primary victory. And so if she does run, I actually do expect her to be the Democrat Party nominee, in my personal opinion. Obviously, that can change, but I think she'd have a really good chance at being the nominee if she were to announce earlier. Now, again, looking at the betting markets, This is just very, very straightforward stuff. Nothing really, too long-winded here. But if you look at the betting markets for each party, JD Vance is at 55% in the betting markets, with Rubio at 10%, Donald Trump at 4% right now. And Rubio's odds went up a decent amount of points not that long ago, but have since declined ever since Marco has made the statement about Vance being a potential 2028 nominee, which kind of seems to rule out his prospects of running in 2028. And so that's also interesting. And this, in my opinion, makes JD Vance the presumptive GOP nominee. Now, as for the Democrats, if you look at their betting markets, Gavin Newsom currently sits at about 20%, give or take. It sits at about 20% or so. And this shows the Democrats with Gavin Newsom at 20%, AOC at 16%, Pete Buttigieg at 12%, Andy Beshear at 6%, Josh Shapiro at 6%, Kamala Harris at 6%, Wes Moore at 5%, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson at 2%, Stephen A. Smith at 2%. You have a lot of wild card candidates here that are sitting at very, very low betting odds as of right now, including even Mr. Beast is currently on the Democratic nomination betting odds slot, which he currently has about $286,000 invested in his name, which is actually that's kind of crazy if you think about it. George Clooney even has some very minor backing on here. Mandami at 1%, even though he wouldn't even be allowed to run. And Stephen A. Smith sitting at about 2% or so as of right now. So that's very, very fascinating there. The party is fractured. There is no clear front runner for the nomination. And so what you'll notice is when I actually go ahead and look at my on-point map for today, you're going to see that as of right now, the map currently stands on August 6, 2025, with the toss-ups being Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia. The national popular vote being at Vance plus 0.5. The Vance being at about 265 electoral college votes. The Democrats 226 electoral college votes. And this is using my election model, by the way, which I do not plan to reveal publicly as of right now. It's a very complex model built in Excel. I have not really discussed it at length because it's something that I took so much time to build that I probably wouldn't give free access to it. To be honest with you, it's possible that I would kind of put those behind a paywall at some point if I do streams or episodes where I use the model in depth. I probably would put that behind a paywall just because of how good the model actually is. Basically shifts every single county individually based on different demographic information and things that I put in. So I basically have a really advanced swingometer effectively. And when you look at the breakdown of the map here, you see that it's a little bit more of a left environment compared to 2024. Colorado's over 12 points. You see Virginia and New Jersey are over 6 points Democrat this time. You see that, Georgia is in lean Republican. Arizona is a little bit closer than when it was before. Nevada is now a pure toss-up with Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia, with Pennsylvania actually being a little bit more Republican than last time, which would make sense given the voter registration trends there, as well as in North Carolina and Arizona, by the way. So those states have been trending to the right in voter registration. And so because of that, you do have them being a little bit more right-leaning swing states. But overall, Vance is in the clear position to win the 2028 presidential election just based on this map alone. Just based on this map alone, he is favored to win the presidential election. Now, looking at the statement that the president made on Eric Daugherty's page, we're actually going to go ahead and pull this up right now. But this is what the president had to say in this clip.
Morning, that you probably won't be running for a third term. This weekend, Secretary of State Rubio said that he thought JD Vance would be a great nominee. You could clear the entire Republican field right now. Do you agree that the heir apparent to MAGA is J.D. Vance?
Well, I think most likely, in all fairness, he's the vice president. I think Marco is also somebody that maybe would get together with JD in some form. I also think we have incredible people, some of the people on the stage right here. So it's too early, obviously, to talk about it, but certainly he's doing a great job and he would be probably favored at this point.
If Texas redrawing this morning, that
So
he
that's
probably
the
won't
clip,
be
right?
running for a third
Okay, so
term.
basically he says that, it's still too early. There's a lot of people. And of course, Trump likes to, again, he's very transactional. He really likes to people who will help him. He'll give him praise, but he's also realistic. And he realizes that JD Vance is practically the front runner, even says most likely would be the nominee. So that's really interesting. And that kind of shows perspective on Trump's opinion there. And then again, looking here, what Charlie Kirk said, the owner of Turning Point, even mentioned very briefly in a tweet just yesterday, actually. Let's stay focused on the work in front of us, but I'll say this much for now. J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio would be one of the most formidable presidential tickets ever assembled. Okay, back to work. And this is true. I do think this is true. Now, of course, J.D. Vance isn't a perfect candidate. There are a lot of things that have to be discussed, especially his connections with Peter Thiel. I definitely think that is going to come up during the presidential election. I do think that people that really weren't a fan of the Iran bombing, certain, mishaps in the administration so far, the Epstein files, which I probably will cover in a future episode, though that will affect his ticket. But overall, it's actually been smart for him not to comment too much on the Epstein. He, in fact, actually hasn't really been hit by it as much as Trump has. Trump has taken a much more hit on it than somebody like JD Vance. So overall, besides those things, I think he's got a lot of positives. He's a very effective communicator. He's really good at presenting his ideas, very relatable in interviews, in my opinion. Talks about football, fishing, last time he drove a car, so he is very relatable, very approachable. I think he'll get a lot of voters that didn't vote for Trump just because of his personality, but would have agreed with him on paper. And somebody like Vance, I think, although would do a little bit worse with Hispanic and Black voters, would do a little bit better with white voters, in my opinion. I think he's more aligned with that like Rust Belt type of coalition voters. So, and of course, Marco being on the ticket would really help out with, some Hispanic voters and some GOP moderates that would have voted for Harris because they didn't like Trump's personality. I think Marco would be able to get those people on board. And so I think this is the case. I think this would be one of the most formidable tickets that we've seen in a really, really long time. The last topic for today is going to be the Young Republicans convention that happened in Nashville just a couple days ago. I did a video about this where I interviewed Michael Casey, and this was a disaster, to say the least. They reelected their chair, Hayden, which I forget the last name right now, but they reelected their national chair. And, there's a lot of firsthand reports of very suspicious activity. And I covered this in depth with Michael in the last interview. This is a really big problem because you have Turning Point and you have College Republicans of America, which is the new College Republicans group that is replacing the National Federation of College Republicans, which is the same group that ended up screwing me over a couple months ago. If you guys don't know about that, maybe I'll do an episode where I just kind of talk about the whole story and kind of go through my valuetainment article about everything that happened. I may actually do an episode on that. But College Republicans of America is slowly taking over the NFCR. And you do have the Young Republican group as well, which is another faction of GOP, young, GOP voters that put in the work that helped President Trump get elected, or at least some of the states, because as we all know, the national chair allegedly does not like President Trump and actually didn't help out states that didn't like that he saw as helping President Trump. He didn't want to help certain states, which is a comment I'll get to later on. But this is a statement from Clay Young Republicans, which is, I had gotten a lot of information about what happened from somebody there named Sammy, who's the chair of Clay Young Republicans. And this is what the statement says. Over the past weekend, young Republicans from across the nation traveled to Nashville for the Young Republican National Federation Convention. Many, including our dedicated Florida delegation, made significant sacrifices to attend, only to encounter a troubling lack of transparency in the voting process. Reports quickly surfaced that some delegates were being blocked from voting despite promises of transparency. The tabulations were never shared. We have asked numerous times since the convention, even in email, with no correspondence to date. The board sat on stage with computers facing away from the audience, no projections of the vote tallies, and at one point a tally for the Georgia Young Republicans was entered incorrectly. This error was only caught because another delegate read the lips of the national board, and upon them correcting the vote highlighted just how flawed the process was. This moment shifted the mood in the room as it became clear that something was amiss, and discomfort grew. This was even after the Nevada delegation brought forward a motion from the very start to appeal the credentialing committee's decision, a motion which took 3 hours to deliberate with many breaks, allegedly citing algorithm issues with the spreadsheet, which is ridiculous because it could take you like 5 minutes at most to fix a formula issue in a spreadsheet. The results matter less than the unorganization, untrustworthy process, and the disrespect that followed. In fact, I was just annoyed until I watched a video of how Chairman Padgett talked to my fellow Florida YRs, because by the time I was so uncomfortable and disgusted with leadership that I had walked out of the room for the final vote after I was counted. This treatment of the Florida Young Republicans at the convention is part of a larger pattern that began when we endorsed Donald Trump for president after Ron DeSantis dropped out of the race. The YR national leadership even threatened to file a grievance against us for simply aligning with our direction of our state GOP. I have stayed silent in hopes that things would improve, but it's become clear nothing will change unless I speak out. This pattern of being treated as if we did something wrong for simply following our GOP's lead is unacceptable. As an elder YR, I will not stand for it, and they just as they haven't stood for our YRs. The Florida Young Republicans have always been team players contributing to GOP efforts nationwide, and as a whole deserves to be treated with respect and fairness. The way we were treated at this convention for asking for transparency for everyone, not just ourselves, has left a black eye on the organization and serves as a stark reminder that we must do better. Moving forward, I am committed to ensuring open and honest conversations with the YR national leadership in the GOP. I am committed, as I've always been, in standing up for everyone who felt pressured, disrespected, and disenfranchised. We need to uphold the principles of free and fair elections and ensure that all members feel valued and respected. The future of the GOP depends on our ability to recruit, train, and support young conservatives, and that starts with leading by example. So that was the statement from yesterday that the Clay Young Republicans published on X. And then again, looking at Nevada's statement, I mean, they basically describe, the motion on the floor of the convention taking many hours to resolve, and this is just a really, really big issue. As the chairman of the YRs, I hope my letter to the credentials can shed light on the issue. And this was a letter submitted to the credential committee talking about how, they felt like they were treated unfairly, how they feel like they should deserve to be on there, spending money to help send the national delegates there. And so they were finally able to get, their delegates in the building after the motion, which was good. But unfortunately, the meeting didn't exactly pan out the way that people really thought it should have panned out, right? And again, we look at this, for example, looking at Arizona's comment, which is kind of interesting. We see that Hayden Padgett, he wrote that is the worst. Like Tyler Bower wrote, it might be time to start a new YR organization that is focused on raising money in the swing states. The current iteration isn't getting it done. And Hayden Padgett said that is the worst solution to losing an election, will only lead to a CR level of dysfunction in the GOP youth movement. I'm committed to working with every leader from Restore and helping their states thrive. And then look at this. The fact you didn't even win your own state is so embarrassing. Really shows how good of a leader you are. Yeah, he actually lost about 2/3 of his delegation. Just FYI. That's already a problem, electorally speaking. There already is another organization that can get young Republicans engaged in politics. It's called Turning Point USA. Drop the bylaws for the impeachment process. You want Arizona to thrive? In that case, please advise us on how to initiate impeachment proceedings on the current YRNF chair. Where's that view? Only Google Sheets, including revisions that we were supposed to receive. Yeah, and look at this. Everybody's commenting like crazy. That this is just like a ridiculous process. And if we look at this comment, I believe this is the chair for Arizona. I believe so. Well, this is a Turning Point Action data manager. And this is the Maricopa YR secretary wrote this and said, wow, this is quite a change from 2023 when you told me that Arizona wasn't worth your time because Trump was going to be on the ballot. Glad to hear that Arizona will now get all the help that YRNF can offer. I didn't know that. Now you're telling me for the first time. That's funny. Oh, that's great. This was great. I'm actually going to repost this on my page because this is like amazing. And then again, this nasty comment, right? As far as I know, the restored ticket, their leader, Peter, was always respectful of Hayden, was always respectful of everybody on the other side and worked with everybody very amicably. And you have this clip of Hayden in a private setting, basically like cursing and telling these people to go F themselves. Look at this.
It's better now than it was before. You can't go after a record. You can't go after a character because I'm a good dude, I'm married, I got kids. Go fuck yourself. Yeah! So, I need all of you there tomorrow. I need all of you. I need you to be so fucking energized that they don't even know what hit them. Yeah! All we say is, hell no, we're not going back to some restored passive bullshit. Yeah. We're going forward.
Well, that's great considering coming from the national board that wanted Nikki Haley to win the presidential election. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And this is when Michael Casey, the person I interviewed, he posted a clip basically detailing the following. So we're going to go ahead and actually pull this up as well so that people can see. He goes on to show a clip. National Young Republican Chairman Hayden Padgett threatens to kick out pro-Trump delegates at the national convention after a group demanded he release the results spreadsheets after he was narrowly reelected. Delegates were suspicious after it took an hour to tabulate results on a spreadsheet and wanted it emailed out. Hayden immediately motioned to adjourn after shooting this down. Yeah, you see, so this is ridiculous, right? Like, this was a mess. You know, clearly there were many problems. And then this is interesting, right? Because then he wrote this on his X feed responding to Michael's video. He wrote, "This is utter nonsense. Everyone in that room is pro-President Trump," which is not true, by the way. The video is of the last 30 seconds of a 7-hour convention where a handful of troublemakers tried to stop the overwhelming request to adjourn, get your facts straight. And that it really, I mean, if everybody was pro-President Trump, then why in the world was the Grow YR party handing out a Young Republicans National Federation idiot bingo card where they basically pro-Hayden Padgett states were distributing bingo cards, calling supporters of PETA Gentina, I believe that's how you say it, idiots, and openly mocks President Trump and his supporters. So, I mean, we can read a bunch of these things. So basically, Hayden's supporters had these bingo cards that were pretty much making fun of like the Restore people. And funny enough, Ohio actually handed these out, which is kind of hilarious because Ohio is the same state where the chair basically binded all the delegates. So it didn't matter how the Ohio delegates felt. They all had to vote for who the chair chose, and that was actually Hayden. He chose Hayden. So it's kind of ironic that this is the one that ended up picking him. But it says, we need an audit. Robert's Rules of Order mention, crying, filibuster attempt, kangaroo court, stop the steal, point of order, attorney law / student flex, bound versus unbound reference, election integrity, yelling / screaming, mic grab / tug of war, make YRs great again. I'm never coming back. This is corruption. MLK Jr. quote / reference, which, okay. Lincoln's crazy convention reference, yelling, sit down, stomping off / door slam, excessive cursing. This is a joke. Michigan slander, a personal attack on Hayden or Ashley, yelling / screaming. Donald Trump would hate this. So they were clearly making fun of people that were supporting the more pro-Trump coalition of the young Republicans at the national level. So the statement that everybody in the room is pro-President Trump is just literally false. Like, that's not even correct whatsoever. And the final thing is, this was a really big thing that really is a really big issue. There was a point where they were, the motion was taking forever to go through and restoring Nevada and tabulating the results. And according to this text message, allegedly, you read the text messages and it says this: I was told that the Grow YR went up to a state delegation with CRs and told them that they would be responsible for $8,000 of hotel charges if they didn't vote for their slate. Now, this is allegedly, right? But a lot of people, Michael, in my interview said that this was a really big thing from, the convention. This was like the main talk of the day, that supposedly the Grow party was trying to strong arm people into voting a certain way. And it says here, the state was ready to vote straight, restore, and then split the vote out of fear. And supposedly the delegates that voted for Hayden actually got their rooms covered, which is even worse. That's a vote under duress. Therefore, their vote should not be counted. Hayden went up to the hotel counter after he heard the state was going to go to Peter and removed his card from the room portfolio. And now a CR is stuck with the bill. Can you get proof of this? I'll work on it. So obviously, there's not concrete proof that this happened, but there's been a bunch of comments about this. It was reported by multiple people that this was a big talk of the night, that they saw Hayden at the counter. So this is a really big problem, that you have a Republican group that is just straight up stealing elections. I mean, this is the same thing that the FFCR did to me and Andrew, getting rid of pro-MAGA voices that wanted to challenge the system, and they want their people in there, and that's it. And they just couldn't handle the heat. They couldn't handle the smoke. And this is what happens when you have pro-MAGA leadership come into the fold. And so this is the first episode of Point Blank with Lester Tellez, a show where we talk about politics, non-political discussion. If you guys want to continue watching the show, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss another video just like this. And go ahead and look at my Substack in the description down below. I have a GoFundMe, which you can use to, support the channel. We can help improve the quality of the show as always. And I will see you guys in the next episode.